the Springboks beat New Zealand on the 4th of September 1937 and started a run of events that I think is really interesting. They won the Raeburn Shield that day, so rugby's lineal world title, and they held it all the way through until 1953. They had 12 matches with it, and I think it's really interesting as you run through. And I needed a brain break. I had been working on stuff. My brain was a bit all over the show. So I had a quick look at the data, and I wanted to share it with you. So they beat New Zealand in that tour. New Zealand were touring over to South Africa. They beat them in the last 2 matches of that 4-match series. And they beat them twice in September of 1937. Now, the following year, in 1938, the Lions actually came to tour. And South Africa beat the Lions 2-1. But the Lions aren't eligible for rugby's lineal world title. So the lineal world title is like, you got to beat the guy to take the title, right? So if you hold it, which South Africa did at this point, you got to beat them to take it off them. But the Lions can't. They're not a national team. Interestingly, though, they did win the last test. So if the Lions had been eligible, they would have taken it away with them. They didn't. So this is interesting because actually, so the last qualifying match was in 1937 against New Zealand, and they don't play again. I'm looking down here because I had to write it all down. Until 1949. So in 1949, they played New Zealand 4 times. So that's match 3, 4, 5, 6 of that run. They beat them all 4, which is quite impressive. And then went into the early 1950s. They went on a tour of the UK. So in November 1951, they beat Scotland. December 51, they beat Ireland. December 51, they beat Wales. January 1952, they beat England. February 1952, they beat France. How long are those tours, right? And it makes sense because planes, I mean, they're a thing, but in the 50s, they're not a easy thing like we recognise today. So, but yeah, they started that tour beating Scotland in November and didn't finish until they beat France in February. It's a long old tour. So there we've got ourselves up to 11 matches with rugby's lineal world title, the Raeburn Shield, and then they go back to South Africa. And in August of 1953, they play Australia, and they beat them. But the second match of that 4-match series, they lose. And so they lose the Raeburn Shield, and their run stops there, and they finished on 12 matches, including the first one where they won it off from New Zealand. So that's their best ever run, both in terms of number of days and in terms of matches actually played. Interestingly, they won the last 2 matches against Australia there. So if they have won or not lost that second match in the series, they would have kept the title until 1956. But as it is, it ended in 1953 and restarted again in 1953. Just one of those ones where I was looking at it going, this is remarkable and really interesting as I dive into it. But yeah, to not play any rugby at all between 1938 when the Lions came until 1949. I know there was bigger things going on in the world, but it's crazy when you think about it now, right? That you wouldn't watch your national team play for so long. Crazy. Anyway, I wanted to share that.